So welcome to this week's episode. This is my peak week before Cairns, and so Friday I have a 5k swim, Saturday 180k bike ride, Sunday 30k run. Sounds like fun. In honour of this big week, I am going to look back at last year's race and go through some of my good points, bad points, learnings, and then look forward to this year and put down some of my goals. So that will be the main focus of this week, is just get that peak workout sessions done and then look at my goals and see what I did well last year, what I can learn, how I can make sure that that gives me the best opportunity to do my A, B and C goals for this year. So I hope you enjoy the episode. First, let's look back at last year. I mean, overall, last year was a success because I finished the Ironman. It wasn't the goals that I didn't achieve the goals that I set out with, because I had some pretty lofty goals. But I did have some things that went wrong last year, and I think that's the bit that we want to look at. My results from last year was a 1 hour and 30 swim, 7 hours and 20 minute bike ride, and 6 hours and 37 minutes in the run. And obviously that led to a 15 hours 44 minutes in total, which I was pretty happy with, just to finish. Some things went wrong in that race, and I'm going to go through those, but let's look at the things that did go well first. So the swim went pretty well. I was happy overall with getting the swim done. It was the first time I'd done a big open water swim like that. And so I was overall pretty happy. I swam further than I needed to because I went further outside of the course markers and things like that, just because I was being ultra cautious. And so I know I'll be able to go faster this year. I'm also using a sleeveless wetsuit, which will definitely make things better. The other thing that went really well last year was all the planning. So all of my transition planning, my nutrition, hydration, all of those aspects went really well. So even though some things didn't work in the race, all of the planning went really well, and the failures in the race were nothing to do with that planning. So I was really happy with that. Logistically, it went really well. There were no errors, nothing forgotten, so that's a huge win. And of course, the biggest win of it all was that I finished and I got my first Ironman done. It was a weird day in terms of that, because obviously I was well outside the time that I'd aimed for, but to finish was the big goal. That was the overall goal. Things that didn't go well. Comfort on the bike was a problem. Now, obviously, I had ended up with severe neck pain on the ride, and I really struggled to complete the ride in any kind of comfort, and my speed was well down. I think I averaged like 25 kilometers an hour, or a bit under, which is down on what I thought I would average. And towards the end, the ride just sucked big time. My fueling was a little bit off, not in terms of the preparation, but in terms of the length of the day meant that I had to take on more fuel than I had originally thought, which meant for me that I had a few stomach issues in the run, and just, basically finished out the race drinking flat Coke and eating lollies, which is not ideal, but it got the job done in the end. So but that was really the length of time it took that caused that problem. And the last thing, I had a big foot problem in the run, which meant that my foot felt like it was kind of on fire for a lot of times. I had a lot of trouble running, and I haven't had any problems like that, even in the marathon, any of my long runs. So I'm assuming that problem is gone. So hopefully that won't happen again. So overall, even though I went in last year with some really lofty goals, I was overall happy that I finished, and I didn't get anywhere near the 12.5 hour A time that I imagined that I would be able to do, but that's okay. For that, I have got to put on an extra fuel bottle. So I got some nice bright pink ones so that I can see my bike easier in transition. So let's get this added on. Well, I had a really great swim this morning. I don't think as good as last week's 5Ks, but to put things into perspective, if we compare it to last year, I didn't do anything like a 5K swim. Obviously this year I'm preparing for the double, so there's the longer swimming involved. But I'm really happy with where my swimming's at. I'm very comfortable this year that I should be able to do about an hour 15 and come out of the swim feeling really fresh in Cairns. So with that in mind, let's look forward to this year's goal, or goals. So I still like to set an ABC goal. We've been really pushing really hard across the board. I'm feeling really confident. I'm a bit scared using that word, but I think swim-wise, I'm in a great place, as I just explained. Holding that 2 minutes per 100 meters across 5 kilometers, I'm pretty happy with that kind of pace. The riding, I am, given what I was able to do in WA in the half Ironman, where I did the 90 Ks in 2 hours 43 or something. My aim is to do that for the full 180 in Cairns. It's a little bit more hilly in Cairns, so it's a bit more of an unknown, and obviously it's twice as long. But I feel like I'm in the right place to do that. Assuming everything goes well and fueling goes really well, my aim on the bike is 5.5 hours. But I really feel comfortable that 6 hours is the sort of upper limit, unless something goes horribly wrong, or it's horribly windy, or, obviously there's things that can go wrong, but all things being equal, I'm aiming for 5.5 hours or under that, and I'm looking at a maximum of 6 hours. The run is the really interesting piece of the plan, or the goals looking forward, because my aim, the way Fergus and I have approached this, is that my swim is pretty down pat. My riding is going to be somewhere between 5.5 and 6 hours. And so it all really comes down to the run. So we've sort of treated this lead up like I'm training for a marathon rather than a triathlon. The other two things have got tucked away fairly comfortably, and it will really all come down to how well the run goes as to what my overall time is. My big goal in the run part of the Cairns Ironman is to go a sub 4 hour marathon. And all things being equal, that's quite possible. I'm running fast enough to do that now. It'll just be how I feel. The aim of once I get off the bike, is to feel like I've still got plenty of juice left. So that's kind of they're the three things put individually what I'm aiming for. And then obviously transitions, I still did well in my transitions last year, but if I do 5-minute transitions, then that's all I need to do. So in terms of my A, B and C times, so my A goal is to go sub 11 hours. And given the numbers that I just went through, that's very possible. And that would just put me 1 hour off qualifying for Kona, which just gives you some idea of how ridiculous it is to try and qualify at my age bracket. You would think as you get older it should get easier, but actually some wickedly fast people in my age category, unfortunately. So I doubt that I'll be qualifying for Kona, but all things being equal, going sub 11 hours is very possible. That's like a 1 hour 10 swim, 5-minute transition, 5:30 bike, 5-minute transition, and a 4-hour run gets me 10 hours and 50 minutes. I think that's, whilst, you know, that makes everything going perfectly smoothly. But I think at the end of the day, that's possible. And this is how I do my goals, right? The A goal is the dream goal. As I said before, the real plan is to just not overcook myself in the swim or the ride, so that I've got that sub 4-hour marathon left in me at the end of the day. Because yes, I might be able to go 15 minutes faster on the bike, but that's going to take what that takes out of me is probably not going to be worth it at the end of the day, because I'm going to burn out in the run somewhere. So I'm going to go 5 to 10% under my max effort on the bike, which should still hopefully get me around 5:30 in the ride, and then that'll leave enough for me to have a good run. And if we look now at my B goal, which is basically 30 to 40 minutes slower, like 11 and a half, let's call it 11 and a half hours. So a 1 hour 15 swim, 5-minute T1, 6-hour bike, and a 4-hour run. So, and that gets you 11 hours and 30 minutes. Again, obviously you can look here and see that, you know, how fast I go on the bike and how fast I go on the run are really the two key factors. And one of my internal goals is to try and run that sub 4-hour marathon inside the Ironman. And obviously my C goal is just to go sub 12 hours. All the training indicates that shouldn't be a problem for me, assuming decent conditions on the day. You know, hopefully it's not a 1 meter swell and, you know, 40 knot winds, but that should be relatively, and that's like a 6-hour bike ride and a 4.5 hour marathon. So, you know, that should be, I don't want to say easy, because it's nothing easy about any of this, but given the numbers I'm doing in my training, that should be a relatively achievable goal of going sub 12 hours, and I'd be super happy with that. Obviously, things like the weather play a big factor. You've got to have a little bit of luck, although my bike has been super good and it goes in for a service in a couple of weeks to make sure everything is tip top. I feel like my fueling strategy is even better than last year, so I feel like that's really good. I'm lighter, it's less strain on my body, I'm definitely fitter. So I'm super pumped for this Ironman coming up, and I'm really ready to give it everything I've got. So, like I said, this is peak week, so I've got a big 180k bike ride tomorrow with a 5k run off the back of that. And then on Sunday, I've got my 30k big run. And although my knee's been a bit funny, my left knee, the knee that caused me problems in the marathon, has been a bit funny this week. So I'm really hoping that that's not going to cause me any issues. We will see. But yeah, overall, I'm super pumped, I'm super ready, and I can't wait to get in there and get it done. So I'd love to hear your goals. If you're going to Cairns, I'd love to see your goals in the comments. And if you are going to Cairns and you want to catch up for a run, a ride, or a beer, probably not a beer, maybe a beer after, or a coffee, please reach out. I'd love to get a little group together and catch up with some people when we're in Cairns. I haven't been to many events this year, so it's been a bit isolating. So reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. next you'll see, we'll have a look at how I did on my ride and my run, and fingers crossed. Okay, so we are all ready for my ride. Ready for my 180k ride, followed by a 5k run. My neck is a little sore this morning, which is not ideal, so I've already had some Nurofen, and hopefully it loosens up a little bit on the ride, or it'll get 100 times worse. Either way, this is Ironman training, so we just do it. I'm ready to go. Well, 70 k's in, doing all right. It's a bit windier than I thought, but we'll see how we go. Halfway there now. It's, you know how I said if there was a wind, well, there's a wind, so that's okay. The into the headwind part, it should be over mostly now, so I'll head back and be a bit nicer. So let's get it done. Well, that was an absolute terrible ride. I ended up doing 160 k's in the end, and I won't be going for my 5k run. There's no way. I started off with a sore neck, and now it is just throbbing, and the wind was terrible. It was just one of those rides. The wind was bad. I got like every second red light. So anyway, it's always good to get those really diabolical rides out of the way, but I definitely need a shower right now. Let's hope the run goes better tomorrow. Well, it is Sunday morning and I have a 30k run this morning. I didn't follow up any words of wisdom yesterday, because I was just wrecked after that ride. It went so badly. I haven't had a ride like that for, I can't even remember. Probably last year's Ironman, actually, was probably the last worst ride I had. So, funnily, the legs are okay. So I'm assuming that I'm all good to go this morning, and we'll see how this run goes. I'm all got all my fuel, and I'm good to go for 30k's. Let's hope that everything holds together and I don't have a repeat of yesterday, because that was just not fun. But I guess those things happen sometimes, and I'm pretty pragmatic when it comes to these things, because, shit happens, and every workout can't be perfect, and you're going to have some nosedives. So I think it's good to acknowledge that stuff's going to happen and just, be prepared for it, and let those things wash over you and then move on to the next thing. Because if you get stuck in that and start thinking about, oh God, what if that happens in the Ironman and blah, 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 well, anything could happen, and there's no point in dwelling on it. I've got pretty good at that over the years, especially running a business. You kind of have to be good at that sort of stuff. So anyway, let's get into this run and see how that goes. Well, that's 28 k's in just a bit over 3 hours, which I'm pretty happy with. So, legs held up well. Yeah, all around that was pretty good considering yesterday's disaster. Should have ridden today. There's no wind, of course. The wind would have been nicer today when I'm running, but you know, that's the universe for you. So I will sign off at this point and go and have a nice shower. God, I don't think I smell very good at the moment.